Welcome back. Let's continue our walkthrough of the handbook. Let's go to using the REST API section, and within that, we have global parameters. Global parameters are available for all routes and can be used to modify or adjust our responses. For example, there is a underscore fields global parameter that allows us to request only the specific fields that we need rather than fetching all the available data. So if you go to the postman, you can see that we are receiving all the data related to the post. But what if we don't need everything? Maybe we only need a few fields. So in that case, we can pass this underscore fields into our request and specify which fields we need. So if I hit the request, then I can see that the response only includes the ID, link, title, excerpt, and author information rather than providing all the data. This approach helps reduce the size of the payload, making it more efficient. For example, if I remove the fields parameter right now and then send the request, you can see that the response size is 16.27 KB. But by only including the necessary fields that we need, we can reduce the size to 2.39 kilobytes. You can also include meta information by using the meta key parameter. Simply add the meta followed by the meta key name, and that information will be included in the response. This is useful if you only need certain metadata from a post. For example, if you need a specific meta field but not all of them, then this parameter will be helpful for you to include just the data you need. Now, let's talk about the embed parameter, which allows us to embed additional information in the response. So if I go to the postman and if I remove the fields parameter and hit a simple request, you can see that we have the entire response displayed here. And if we scroll a bit below, then we have the author ID, but not the author's full information. It also includes the featured media as just an ID rather than the actual image data or URL. To get more details, such as author's name or the featured media URL, we would typically have to make another request to the related endpoint using the author or the media ID. But using the embed parameter, we can include this information in the same response. So if I just copy the embed parameter and add it to a request, and if you hit this request now, you'll be able to see that we get additional information in the response. So after the links section, you will be able to see that we have the full details of the author, including the author's name, bio, and the URL to their archive page. You'll also see that we have the featured media details, that is the featured media URL and the image data, which are embedded directly in the response. Additionally, you can also embed term information, categories, tags, etc. For instance, you may want to include more details about the post categories rather than just the category IDs. With the embed parameter, you can fetch this information all at once without making a separate request. Using the embed parameter can be helpful because it allows you to reduce the number of HTTP requests needed to gather related information. Since version 5.4 of WordPress, you can even choose to embed only specific data, which can further reduce the overall response size. Now, let's take a look at the method parameter. So this parameter is used to override the HTTP method for a request. For clients that have limited options in the types of requests that they can make, we can use this parameter to override the method for our use case. For instance, if you need to change the HTTP method from get to post or put, you can use this parameter to specify that. There is a potential issue when using this parameter, as it may interfere with the caching mechanisms which are often applied to the GET request for performance reasons. Therefore, this parameter is mostly used with the POST request. Now, let's talk about the envelope parameter. This parameter is used to include the header information directly in the response body, making it easier to access the response details. For example, if I copy this envelope parameter and paste it at the end of my request, And if I hit the request now, then you will be able to see that we receive the content normally that we do. But along with that, we have some additional information. That is, we also get the metadata about the request, such as the total number of posts, total number of pages that we have, and other useful information like the allowed HTTP methods. So this envelope parameter is useful if you are working in an environment where accessing headers is difficult, such as on some servers or proxies. With the envelope parameter, you can include header details in the response body so that you don't need to handle them separately. Then next, we have the JSONP parameter. The JSONP is used to allow cross-domain requests, particularly for legacy browsers. However, most modern browsers now support cross-origin resource sharing, that is coarse headers. So JSONP is typically not used widely. If needed, however, you can include JSONP in the query string along with the name of the function as a value, and it will pass the response in a JavaScript function, which can be executed once the data is loaded. This allows you to handle the response using JavaScript. That was all about the global parameters. Now, moving on to the pagination. We can paginate data received using the REST API. If you are displaying posts asynchronously on the front end, you can use pagination to load additional content without reloading the page. To paginate, you can pass the page parameter, which specifies the page of the results to fetch. You can also use the per page parameter to control how many posts are displayed per page. Then you can also use the offset parameter if you want to start fetching posts from a specific point. This is useful when you want to continue loading posts after a certain index. So let's have a quick demo of these parameters. So I'll just copy the page parameter and add it to end of my request. And if we hit the URL, then you can see that the ID we are getting is 257. But if I remove this, that is on page number 1, the ID was 210. So this way, you can use the page parameter to display the post on the second page. Now, if you go to the headers, you can see that we have these two fields, XWP total and XWP total pages, which are showing that we have a total of 52 posts and 6 pages. Based on this header information, you can dynamically display pagination on the front end. By adjusting the page parameter, you can fetch the data for any page, and the total number of pages can be calculated using the XWP total pages header. Let's move on to the next pagination parameter, that is per page. So let's assume if you want to display fewer posts per page, you can use the per page parameter. By default, it is set to display 10 posts per pages, but you can set it to any number, like 2 posts per page. So if I add this parameter at the end of my request and have 2 posts per page, so in this case, with 52 posts and a per page value of 2, the total number of pages is 26. And if I go to the body, then we can see that we only have 2 posts fetched. Now, you can also control the order of the results by using the order by and order parameters. These are all the arguments that you would typically use in the WP query class in WordPress. The WP query class supports a number of arguments like page, post per page, order by, order, etc. And these arguments are also supported by the REST API, which allows you to filter and customize your post queries through the API. That is all about the pagination parameters. Now let's move on to the linking and embedding. The underscore links property of the response object contains a map of links to the other API endpoints. For example, we have seen that the response includes all kinds of data related to the post, such as the author, featured media, etc. But it doesn't include the links to these information. By default, under the links property, you can see that we have the links like the self link for the current post. And if you want to fetch a single post data, the URL for that post is provided under the links property. Similarly, for a collection, there is a link to that, along with the links to post types, author, version, and more. These links connect to the other resources related to the current post. Now, let's move on to the embed parameter. Using the embed parameter, You can also retrieve all the related information by embedding it within the same response, as we have seen earlier. This is how linking and embedding works in the REST API. That covers the basics of global parameters, pagination, WP query arguments, and linking and embedding in the REST API. I hope you find this helpful. See you in our next video. Jai WordPress.